Hey everyone, John from Beyond ARTV. It is time for another episode of my weekly countdown series, 7 on Sunday. This is a very special episode this week, not only because it's, a different genre, but because I'm talking about songs that I grew up with, ones that kind of defined my childhood years, 7 country songs that I will always love. And I apologize in advance if this is a little bit emotional for me to talk about, just because these are my roots. This is where I came from. This is where I was raised. I was raised in the South on country music. No, not your bro country like what's going on today and that horrible movement that's just dirt roads, beers, hop up in my truck, girl, let's go ride down an old dirt road in a small town through a stop sign on a pontoon boat on a lake in the middle of a shotgun beer wedding. I don't know. There's too many. Anyways, this episode is going to be about 7 songs that I will always love from the country genre. Some of them are a little bit more modern, and as we go through this list, I think it gets a little bit more, emotionally inclined because some of the songs have more serious subject matter. And one thing I will say about country, a problem that I've always had with it, at least since I've been aware of this, is the fact that most country stars don't write their own material. At least they're kind of like co-writers, or they kind of help write it, but not really. I admire the ones who do, some of the people like Chris Stapleton, the modern country stars. I'd like to dedicate this episode to my dad just because he raised me on country. I got away from it for a long time. We had our many disagreements whenever it came to music. We've patched things up since then. He's a big supporter of what I do now, but for the longest time, I just wasn't okay with any country music, regardless of if it was good or quality or not. And these are some of the classics, some of the ones that I absolutely love. There's going to be a Spotify playlist in the description down below, not just for these 7, because I love way more than 7. There's going to be really all of my country favorites. It's going to be in that playlist in the description down below. Please check it out, drop a like on the video, and here's my first pick.
Best thing about being a woman is the prerogative to have a little fun. Oh, they're totally crazy. Forget them a lady, and then short skirts.
Bow now, man. Oh man. I've always loved this song. I remember dancing around the living room to it as a kid. My parents loved this one, surprisingly, considering they're very, very conservative. I don't think I've ever seen them dance more than a handful of times, but this is one where I feel like we had like a family dance, like a party or a dance-off or something in the living room at some point. And I know that's a really weird image probably to give you. I'm an only child, so it was just the 3 of us dancing, parading around to Shania Twain's Man, I Feel Like a Woman. I really love this song. I mean, it seems a bit silly at surface level, but it's not silly like trashy. It's actually pretty empowering and uplifting to women, and that's a good message still to this day. I think that's why it's kind of held that supreme power of being like your go-to song. You're out with the ladies, especially here in the South. This is your going out song. This is the party song. This could be my going out song. I know it doesn't exactly fit me, but at the same time, this is one of those that blended pop, country, a little bit of rock as well. Shania Twain was never like a full-on country artist, especially in her later years, and with her new comeback stuff that I've been hearing so far from her upcoming album Now. It's something where I'm excited to check that out, but if it isn't good, we've still always got classics like this.
You know, talking about you makes me smile. But every once in a while, I wanna talk about me, wanna talk about I, wanna talk about number 1. Oh my, me, my, what I think, what I like, what I know, what I want, what I see. I like talking about you usually.
Who would have thought that I would have Toby Keith, of all people, to thank for getting into a little bit of hip-hop and rap, I guess, at an early age? I mean, it's very mild. This is like the most entry level that you could possibly get. But I Want to Talk About Me is number 6 on my list today. I love a ton of Toby Keith's songs. He had so many hits over the years, especially his early stuff was like really, really good. You Shouldn't Kiss Me Like This, and then My List. Just some absolute classics that can definitely bring a tear to my eye. I almost picked American Soldier, but due to the kind of heavy emotional weight of my next picks that are coming up after this one, I decided to go with something a little bit more lighthearted, and one that I've really been getting back into as of late. It's got a great pace to it, I love it, where he's talking about this relationship that he's in, and the girl only talks about herself, and he's like, you know what? I want to talk about me from time to time. And it's kind of another anthem here. We got two anthems back to back on our hands. This is one that I feel like even if you don't like country, you can get into the groove and the vibe of this song. And because it's upbeat, it's a little bit silly, but it's fun.
It's a waste of breath and it's a waste of time, I know. It's just like him, you always leave me crying, dandelion, sent you dancing on the breeze.
Well, now that we got all the fun out of the way, we can get on to KACEY Musgraves, ripping my heart out over and over again with her amazing music. I love KACEY. She's my favorite modern country artist. Miss Musgraves comes through with a track called Dandelion. That's my number 5 pick. It's a deep cut from 2013's Same Trailer, Different Park. Dandelion has an amazing vibe to it. I love that. I think that some of the guitars throughout her record there really just channeled things like the XX. They kept things minimal, but very twangy at the same time, because you hear that steel guitar going in the background, adding that waxing and waning feel. And this is such a lonesome tune. She's talking about all of the wishes that she's making on this dandelion. She's making her little wishes and they are spreading out everywhere. But just like him, you always leave me crying, dandelion. She sings on the chorus of this track, and it really hits home because her voice, you can hear something there. You can hear the emotional weight packed in, and you can tell that she actually has a hands-on approach to writing the majority of her own material. And maybe not every single song, but this one definitely just kind of takes you with a chokehold, slams you to the ground, especially if you've been through any kind of breakup or any kind of relatable situation like that where you just feel hopeless. This is the song for you.
And it's alright, I'll be fine. Don't worry about this heart of mine. Just take your love and hit the road. There's nothing you can do or say. You're gonna break my heart anyway. So just leave the pieces when you go.
One of the earliest elements of country music, especially as it grew to prominence, was singing the blues, talking about how sad you were and relating that somehow into a song, whether it be in the form of like I'm moving on or I'm just devastated. And I think the Wreckers did a great job here. Many of you actually might know one of the members of the Wreckers. She goes by the name of Michelle Branch. She was a big artist in the early 2000s, started a country duo, and they actually sounded phenomenal together. The Wreckers came through with this song called Leave the Pieces, and it's one of the best moving on songs that I have ever heard still to this day. It has an amazing chorus that definitely soars. They talk about during the verses over this slow and kind of quiet guitar setting the tone. They talk about how things are just going downhill. I'm tired of being sad. I'm tired of crying. And the bridge of this track, holy shit, whenever their voices combine together, it's a harmony for the ages. It's a thing of ecstasy. I love this tune to death.
But I just wouldn't listen, didn't want to all those years. Now the truth is ringing clearly in my ears. And those are the sounds of a woman leaving.
Definitely gonna have to bite my lip a little bit on this one just because it's kind of sad for me to talk about. Country music, like I said, it's kind of what I was raised on up until like age 13. And going back to moments like this just remind me of so many childhood memories. And I know that this song is one of really anything off of the album Drive by Alan Jackson that will just be impossible for me to listen to once my dad passes someday, because I already listened to some of these songs like Remember When, Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning, the song for the 9/11 victims, and they break my heart as it is. And The Sounds is the track that I'm talking about today. It's a deep cut from Drive. It's a beautiful song, kind of talking about how a man should have known all of these things, all of the signs that were coming, and his wife, or the woman in his life, has walked out of his life, and he said that I should have heard the sounds of a woman leaving. You can't hear it, but the silence is killing me, basically saying like she's no longer here and I'm just in this place alone. And the reason that I say that it's going to break my heart to listen to someday, because this was me and my dad's album. I have specific memories dating back to 2002. He bought this album the day it came out, and we would just drive around in his truck, and you know, he was a school teacher, so he was off in the summers, and this album I think came out around the summer. And we would just sit there every day at lunch, and this album would be playing on the CD player in the background. And we would sing the songs together, and he would kind of talk about the meanings of them with me. So it just kind of definitely makes me emotional to even think about. And some of these songs, not gonna lie, if you listen to them in the right setting, especially if I'm by myself, can make me tear up.
The reasons that I can't stay don't have a thing to do with being in love. And I understand that loving a man shouldn't have to be this rough. And you ain't the only one who feels like this world's left you far behind.
Angry All the Time is performed by husband and wife duo Tim McGraw and Faith Hill. They went through some rough patches in their relationship, but as of recording this video, they are still together and married. They are one of country music's biggest and most well-known couples. And this was off of Set This Circus Down. This was a really, really solid album from Tim McGraw. My dad also owned that one way back in the day, and I loved the majority of it, but this was a song that stood out to me because of its early emotional weight, and I kind of related to it, not because I had a terrible home life or anything like that, but my parents often did argue a lot, especially back in the day. They've definitely worked through, I think, a lot of their differences over time. But it was something where the chorus of this song sings about, like, you know, the person not being able to stay, and it doesn't have anything to do with being in love. And, you know, the closing line is, I don't know why you have to be angry all the time. And it's something where I felt that, and I felt that presence between them, and even sometimes directed towards me as a kid. And I just remember absolutely loving this song because I felt like it was something that understood, and as a child it can be very, very confusing. I know there's plenty of kids that had it way worse than me. I'm not trying to say that whatsoever, but it just definitely reminds me of those days. It's a really, really well done song. It's slow, it's brooding, it's got some great guitars on it, and the vocals are impeccable.
And I don't see how you could ever be anything but mine.
Oh, I can close my eyes and go back with this one. I know that's the name of another Kenny Chesney song, I Go Back, but Anything But Mine is my #1 pick today. This is a country song that I have loved since When the Sun Goes Down, the album, came out in, I believe, 2003. It's a magical moment that definitely blends country and rock. It's really, I think, Kenny Chesney's best song, and it's one that packs in that feeling of a summer coming to a close. Like you had this fling with somebody, and you know that that is almost over. You know that your time is up, and that it's never going to work again. You both live in different places. You're off the charts to each other, but you had this magical moment, whether it be a week, a summer, whatever it was. And this song is all about the sting of summer fading, and you know that this is your last night. The hook on this thing roars and kicks ass. The guitar solo, out of this world. I mean, on a Kenny Chesney song, didn't see that coming. His backing band kills it on this one, and just the way that he tackles the entire song. I know he didn't write this, but the way that he interprets this and makes it apply to him, it's very believable, very genuine, and I love that. Kenny used to have some really good hits, like The Good Stuff, When the Sun Goes Down with Uncle Kracker was a fun one, and this just gets me emotional and nostalgic like nothing else, because it takes me back to those early days of college. Even back when I listened to this when I was a kid, I didn't fully understand it, but I still loved it at the time. It was my favorite song on the album, and still to this day, probably my favorite country song ever. If you're able to donate monthly on Patreon, it would be much appreciated. It helps videos like this keep coming. The annotation's in the corner of the screen, or else the top link in the description down below. You can see last week's episode of SOS right here, or a KACEY MUSGRAVES review right here. Socials in the description, and I'll see you very soon right here on Beyond ARTV.